welcome in to another episode of Friends from Work, a podcast about all things in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and it's a podcast that's hosted by me, Kyle Sconowell, and my longtime friend from work, Robbie Earl. Happy Warzone 3.0 week to all those who celebrate. I will be partaking on Wednesday, the brand new version of Warzone.
How significant is that, like, within the context of that franchise? Like, is that like equivalent to a new, like, in Spider-Man terms, how does that fit between like a new Spider-Man game, a new Miles Morales game, some new DLC? Okay. Like, speak to me in my language here.
What an excellent question. This is why I love having you here. It's not as significant as those just because Call of Duty puts out new games almost yearly. So you haven't waited 5 years. That's a big difference. And Warzone, specifically the Battle Royale version, will never really be able to fully recapture the magic they had during the pandemic. Because I think I've told you that. They put out a game that was cross-platform, 150 players at a time, free on computer, Xbox, or PlayStation.
Yeah.
And it was free. And it just so happened that it coincided right with the entire world being told, you need to stay at home. So like they literally had like, don't quote me on this, but it was 100 million players nightly, you know, just because everyone's like, it's free and I got to be home. So I've always thought, you know, the same kind of like Marvel jadedness that's happening in culture, that's actually happening in the gaming world too with Call of Duty. Like everyone's like, oh, the new one's not as good as the old one. And let's go back to those days. And I really think more than anything, people miss that era where they didn't have any jobs and anything more than the actual game. Does that make sense? Like it was new, it was fresh, and they had nothing else to do.
Yeah, I think that's true, which is weird because it was such a dark era. But I also think it was like there was also something kind of unifying about it early on. Sure. You know, where everybody was in the same spot. And we were all just playing games and watching movies. Or in my case, watching like 4 movies a day. Yeah,
in your case, yeah. How was your Thanksgiving break? You did something very different you should tell people about.
Yes, yeah. I'm trying to remember how much we talked about before we broke, but
you did not tell people where you were going because I didn't even know until you texted me pictures.
Oh, fair. Okay. Yeah, my birthday always corresponds to Thanksgiving week, and this year it was the day before Thanksgiving. And last year we went so hard on the holiday travel that by the end of it, we were just like shells of people, and decided that we were going to approach this year differently and scale back a bit on that. And so we, for my birthday / Thanksgiving, went and got like a cabin outside of Portland, right by Mount Hood. And it was perfect. It was kind of like after we got back from Candace's birthday trip over the summer, we knew we didn't want to do anything like big or like, we wanted to keep it fairly low key. And I still think that, I told you this, I still think that there's just no argument. The Northwest is the best part of the country, just at least from a geographical standpoint. Like I just love the way everything looks there. The topography. It's like, it's green and gray, and that's all that I really want. It's Fellowship of the Ring colors. So
you know my family's originally from Seattle, right? You know that.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, you still have family up there, right?
I do, yeah. Yep.
And it's like all other things being equal, like it's so far away from all of my family, and it would never make any sort of sense, like job-wise and all of those things. Yep. But if all things were equal, I would move up there in like a heartbeat.
I love that you said that. I've had that conversation so many times where I'm in Seattle and I think, wow, this is so beautiful. And even just your drives on the highway are so different from what I'm used to. The kinds of trees, the rock wall, and like how it winds through some of that stuff, like over Puget Sound, all this stuff. But I also always feel so far away from everything I know. It's hard to explain. You just feel like you're in a different country almost. Like trying to call my parents is a 3-hour time difference. So I get done with an activity at 6 and it's already 9 p.m. there. I don't know. I feel so far away. So it's one of those things where I'm like, if I started there and built my life there, I get it. But now it feels like Like Nashville's so central. It's one of the best parts about it. So I can get everywhere quickly. But there you're like, man, I feel detached from everything.
Yeah, that is also one thing that I miss about Nashville, because it is so central, and Austin is...
It's closer-ish, but because it's so south, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, getting from Austin to like LA is super easy.
Yeah,
so
correct.
That's nice. But anywhere on the East Coast, we're so far away. And then, yeah, pretty much everyone's far away from the Northwest. But that's part of the holiday travel, to bring it all the way back, is it's like, it takes us so long to get to either of our hometowns, because like there's no direct flight or anything even resembling that. And so you're looking at like a 6 hour to 8 hour like minimum drive to each place. And it's just, so instead, yeah, a little Loki week. But what about you? You had an actual Thanksgiving.
A Loki week, you might say even. My Thanksgiving was great. Just, it's always in Michigan, family time. Got to throw the football around outside. We actually didn't have any snow this year, so nice weather. No complaints. The nice. Travel gets longer and longer every year with a aging toddler. But
an aging
Southwest,
toddler.
Southwest
I'm picturing like Benjamin Button right now.
Aging in reverse. Southwest is adding a nonstop to Grand Rapids, so that might make it easier.
Oh, nice.
You know, we've been doing this podcast now we crossed our 4-year anniversary in September, I think. And one of the things I'm finding interesting the further we get into this is how even in the podcast world, each season has its own season, if you will. Like I always kind of associate January and February with the new year, but we're always kind of reflecting on the previous year with the friendlies, and you kind of go through this phase where there's not usually new content there. And then usually from about, like late spring through the summer is always just kind of crazy on the podcast with new episodes. But you don't have much time to do much reflecting or gathering your bearings on any of the behind the scenes stuff, because you're just week to week trying to cover content, especially with Friends from Work Plus. And then the fall kind of stays the same, and then starts melding with the football world and how that was going with Friends from Football and stuff like that. And then we get to this point every year, and because of the Thanksgiving holiday and then upcoming Christmas, in the freelance world, there's probably Candace knows this too, a lot of the freelance world shuts down from, December to February 1 kind of thing. And so you end up having a lot of free time, but I love the feeling of just new. And so a couple things. For me, one thing that's been interesting is that I am not one of these gear guys that in my studio, every time I made $1, I would buy something new. You know those people, right? Like, get a new $1, they got to switch out their guitar pedal, right? You make some money in the studio, got to buy a new piece of outboard gear. I've never done that because I've needed the money to survive. Like, it's my job, so I didn't have extra money to spend. But some things I've neglected for so long. And so I finally, like this last week, bit the bullet on a ton of stuff. Oh, nice. And so I hate the price. It makes me sick. But now that the price is done with, wow, it's fun. I'm sitting on a new rug here. I got a new computer, dude. And it's going to help our video editing so much. A new microphone that's coming in the mail, 2 new monitors for my color correcting. Like I went all out, bro. So I have a whole new studio.
It's a small price to pay.
It's a small price to pay. So that feels new. But then I texted you a picture. What's wild is, and I won't say all the specifics yet, but because we finally have a chance on the podcast front to catch our bearings, get ready for a merch holiday bundle and just get ready for some new stuff. Because oh gosh, can I even list this all? Like I've been working on getting the artwork prints to Friends from Work Plus people. So those are coming in the next week or so. I have a few mugs that are coming in that'll be for sale, tumblers, which are so dope. We're working on some beanies, and then we're working on a hoodie and maybe a shirt. And then on top of that, I think I'm going to work up some bundles, and I have a few of our old shirts left. And so I'm kind of, you can't see this, but I'm looking at this part of the studio. I'm kind of laying out this half of my studio to be like merch mode. So I have all the stuff laid out so I can just print it, ship it easily. So I say that to say there is just a fun kind of reflective, but also feeling of like a new, fresh start in some ways for me. And I love that feeling. So I kind of I'm learning to treasure this time of the year.
No, this is I love November in part because it's always been my birthday month, but it's just my favorite month because it's kind of like the gateway to not just the holidays, but also kind of winter in the South, at least this far down. Same where I grew up. So it's like, but yeah, it's weird because it's the end of the year, but it does feel like all this new stuff starts.
Yeah, I'm kind of lumping the arrow would be like post Thanksgiving until like January 15. That's like the window I'm talking about here.
And okay, before we jump in, just because you mentioned that, I do want to note that we are doing stuff on the merch side that we've never done before in terms of the kinds of items, the kinds of designs. And so I've been really happy with everything that we have been able to put out on our merch store. And I still wear a ton of it all the time, and Candace makes fun of me. But the stuff we're doing now I think it's going to be really fresh for people that have been supporting us along the way and have maybe gotten some other t-shirts and stuff in the past. So if you have been looking for some new Friends from Work merch, this is a good time.
Yeah, so I'll just quickly say then too, we're going to be doing some giveaways as we get closer to the holidays. And obviously, if you're a Friends from Work Plus subscriber with all this new merch, if any of it looks dope, you have a discount code depending on your tier there. So you could use that. And I'll use that by way of saying that our friends at Cinemark again hooked us up with 3 more $25 gift cards. And so here's what I'm going to do now. The first 3 people to sign up for Friends from Work Plus are going to get a Cinemark gift card, $25. So win-win-win. Wow. If you're interested in more Friends from Work, not only will Friends from Work Plus be a good sign up for you, the first 3 people will get a gift card.
Oh, true, yeah.
And then you'll have discount codes for this new merch. So you can be fully decked out for the holidays.
And we will talk more about that later in the episode, but this is for a lot of reasons. Too many reasons to list because it would get boring at this stage in the episode. But there are a lot of reasons to sign up for Friends from Work Plus right now. So again, if you're on the fence, get a free Cinemark gift card and you'll see fun stuff. So
Cinemark gift card, new merchandise coming. And then we're going to be diving in today to our reflection and ranking of both Loki and the Marvels. So this might end up being a mega episode. I'm trying to keep this tight. You post-Thanksgiving have had an absolutely absurd work week, I think, right? So I don't even know that you've had a chance to rewatch Loki or the Marvels.
I haven't, which is crazy. I was telling you, it's just thinking back to Quantumania. Which was, kind of a unique project in a lot of ways, both for us and for the MCU. But I think I wound up seeing that like 4 times before we did our reflection episode.
In theaters.
In theaters, yeah. Crazy. And because it's like I saw it with you in California, I came back and saw the regional press screener with Candace. And then I think I took another friend to go see it. And then I watched it before both our reflection episode and our interview with Jeff Loveness. And so it's just so weird comparing that to, because even Guardians, I think I had seen at least twice before. So this is the first time in a bit. But
I have good news for you. I do. I did get a chance to go to the Marvels again. I went at 11:35 on a Tuesday. Literally me and one other guy in the entire theater. And I texted you. I said, don't you wish your life was as cool as mine? That for work, I'm justifying going to a movie at 11:35, like eating some food for my lunch break.
Yeah. Well, in fairness, I have done that before. I did that with Wakanda Forever, I think.
Oh, boy. And then I watched Loki sporadically throughout Thanksgiving on the way home, stuff like that. And here's the good news. A lot of times we rewatch stuff and there's a massive takeaway one way or the other. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, wow, I see some of these concerns now. Or, wow, I was kind of unsure about stuff, but now it's all coming together, a la like No Way Home.
Yeah.
And I feel like this, for me, was a rare instance where both of these projects, I think we nailed it in the initial reactions.
Nice.
Like, they're both still great and just what we thought they were. Yes, I picked up on some more information, but I don't think you have to go see it to fundamentally change what you thought of it. So that's my encouragement to you. You can still do this episode.
No, that's exciting. And also, it's going to be kind of fun because I have some genuine questions for you that I would like to hear your answer to. A lot of them I'm sure you will answer as we start going, but I would like to hear your answer before I have my second viewing, because that's kind of rare that you've seen it twice before I have, I think.
I think so too. And what's rare is 2 full page of notes. If you
look at that.
So we're gonna have to find a way to make this go a little bit quicker. Here's another crazy thing real quick. I just did a show with an artist and we drove back this morning right before this podcast episode, and I had a cold. So my voice, as you can tell, it's really raspy already, but part of that's raspy because he just watched Loki and loved it. So the whole car ride home, we broke down Loki. Like all the geniusness of it right before this podcast. So this is now like round 3 of me talking about Loki with no voice left. And again, it's not that my podcast community isn't more important to me, but it just, it came up and then I can't stop the train when we started talking about Loki and all the metaphysical stuff in it. So here's what I think we should do. Because I have so many notes and because you don't have any, let's do a fun little thing here where I'm just going to start blazing through these. And if you disagree with me or want to stop me, we need to come up with like a code word or something to just shout, and that'll stop me. And then you give your thoughts or a buzzer or something.
Yeah. Except I need to have a buzzer.
Like from Staples.
Like an actual physical.
Up, yeah.
That's true. I'll think.
Well, I think we should start with Loki and then do the Marvels after a break is what I want to do, I think.
Cool.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
Okay, because Loki's a TV show, I got to stay high level. Otherwise, we're going to go through all the granular stuff of the episodes, which we already loved, and you can go back and listen to those episodes. It's really great, man. It's really, really great. It is very masterfully put together, and once my guard was even more down, and now that I kind of know where it's going, emotionally the impact was there. More than it was the day after we finished it. I just now can fully appreciate what they were trying to do, what they set out to do, and the fact that they executed it so perfectly to where I just think on how I was not wanting this show originally. To go from that to now, it'd be hard to see the Loki character without this growth. Right? I literally was on this podcast saying, I don't think they should do shows like this to minimize what Loki had done or Vision or other characters. And then 2 for 2, when they brought Vision back in a way, they found a way to do it that moved me so emotionally. And then here they brought Loki back, and now 2 years later, I'm like as in on where this went as possible. So that's my high summary is like, I didn't think they could pull it off, and they pulled it off.
Yeah, I think that the biggest thing for me, and I remember thinking this as we were getting through season 2, but looking back, this is the best example I think I've seen, period, at least like what is coming to mind at the moment, of letting a character truly evolve into something different. Like a character that has such a history already. I mean, by the time Loki dies in Infinity War, that's meaningful because you've already gotten so much time with that character. And that felt like, which is what we talked about a lot, like a full arc in and of itself, which is why we didn't think that the Loki series really had a place. But, and I think in some ways, that's also why season 2 hit so hard for me, both as its own thing and for what it does to season 1, is because in season 1, I did feel like Loki at times was the least interesting part of his show. Like I was much more interested in the larger mysteries about like how the TVA came together and what all that means and what it means for time travel and Endgame and all that. And I liked Tom Hiddleston, but I feel like he wasn't, it wasn't a show that I thought showed me a side of him that was either transformational or really resonated with me in any way different from what we had gotten. In some ways, I thought it was kind of a step backwards, necessarily. But so anyway, yeah, it is crazy to look back at it through that lens of like where you and I both were when that was announced and just how masterfully they were able to like maneuver expectations all around, I think.
I keep thinking about Love and Thunder because I think in so many ways you and I thought Thor's trilogy at the time could have been done with Ragnarok and the way they did it with Endgame. Like, you could end it there. And some part of you probably was okay with ending it there or wanted it to end there and not milk it too long. And I just have such respect for Marvel and the team that they could look at Thor and go, I mean, we maybe don't need to take him a different direction, or we don't need to take him bigger or larger. We need to just go deeper into his character and like just make a movie about what was he struggling with, and internally, what does it mean to be a god? And like look at like headier, deeper questions. And yes, I know that's the film with goats and all these silly things. But I kind of thought about that here because I thought Loki's story was a pretty great arc in the Infinity Saga. And I don't think that what I'm about to say belittles that or changes that. But it's like, if you're going to bring Loki back, how can we get deeper into that glorious purpose? And what does that even mean for him to have a purpose? And we don't need to make it bigger. We don't need to make him more powerful, but we need to dive into like what makes him tick, a la Mobius. And now I look at it and go, this actually now is a way better arc to play with that glorious purpose than it was when I thought they were done, basically. So I'm trying to learn to change my mind and be a little more open-minded about it. Like, I know we talked about this in the finale, but just to put emphasis on how ridiculously good the storytelling is, to take 2012 Loki, who says, I am Loki of Asgard and I am burdened with glorious purpose. And to think that this insecure, overcompensating character because of family trauma is looking for glorious purpose, a la a throne to rule humans because he saw them as above them, as Thor would say. And that's kind of all that character is. And really to kind of go through that to where he dies, like, yes, he has some growth, but it's not the depth that this show now gave us, which is to go from that to calling the first episode Glorious Purpose, where he's even wrestling with like, okay, if I can just be pulled out of the timeline, what is even my purpose? Like, if there's infinite versions of me, like everything everywhere all at once, is life meaningless? Like, what? I don't even get this. To go full circle from that, all of that, to calling the last episode Glorious Purpose and getting the shout out of Loki back in his original Asgardian gear, literally finding purpose in sacrificing himself as a god, like Love and Thunder, laying down his own interests because he cannot win for himself, so that his friends and the rest of all of the galaxies can exist, even though it means he's going to be sitting there for eternity on a throne, ruling in a sacrificial way like Thor, totally different from what he originally wanted. Just to put an emphasis on that, what a magnificent storytelling technique.
Well, the way that it goes from Glorious Purpose seeming kind of like it's like a cruel joke, you know, at the start of the show. And then, for it to come back and be something that now I think re-informs Avengers Loki and even Thor, like Thor 1 Loki. Like, I don't think we talked about this in our original review because I don't think I caught it in the moment. But there's even like the Tom Hiddleston throwback line to the first Thor. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, I do, because I saw it online. You have to tell me the line again, but I know what you're talking about.
That's where, it's, I think it's, because the line in Thor was, what I did it, I think I did it for you, I did it for all of us.
Yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
And apparently that was a Hiddleston improv kind of ad to the finale, which the article that I was reading, maybe the same one that you read, was also really, I loved seeing how much he was involved creatively in this season. And I know that was the case in the first season as well, but I feel like he earned even more trust on like a writing level. And it seems like he was really like in the moment making certain tweaks that he thought aligned with that character. And I think that that's worth bringing up because I really did feel like this season in particular, in the finale especially, which is what you're saying, like it honored that character. Like it felt like it was coming from somebody who, like Tom, clearly is really passionate about the work that's been done and the story that's been told, and honoring that, and not disappointing fans, but also I think not disappointing himself after having had such a run.
100% agree. Let's zoom in a tiny bit now. That's the overarching theme of the entire episode. You and I are going to take some time to update our journey through the MCU playlist, because the music's been really great and we got to get some of these new tracks on there from both the Marvels and Loki. I think, and I'm just going to give the spoiler right now, I think this needs to be our joint ranking number 1 Disney Plus show. Here's what I'll say. I'm going to share, when we do the rankings here at the end, I'm going to share my preference list. I'm going to give the preference nod to WandaVision 1. Someone commented on how he accent that. WandaVision. They said we go WandaVision, put emphasis on vision. Anyways, WandaVision is still my, I feel like I kind of do it neutral. I'm trying to go WandaVision, like one word is what I'm trying to do, not WandaVision.
It's like television, right? Am I doing too much vision there?
That's
like
what
if I'm watching
one
television?
of our listeners was saying, but I'm trying to say just WandaVision, no accent.
Yeah.
But he says that a lot of people say WandaVision and we go WandaVision. I don't know. I don't know. Whatever. Yeah. Anyways.
I don't know.
I think that's going to still be my preference 1, with this Loki season 2 being my preference 2. And I'll share that list if you're watching on YouTube or on Spotify. But I think it needs to be our joint critic ranking 1, because there are actual critic questions about the finale of WandaVision that I just don't have here. I think critically, most people would say this is probably more acclaimed.
And I would say people that I've seen online or heard that have just not been enjoying the MCU as much over the last year or so, I've seen those same people really enjoy Loki season 2. So I think you're right on the critical side. Like it seems to kind of be transcending whatever moment we are in or not in.
Like the person I had this conversation with is not a person that would have expected to have this conversation with, right? So I'm getting those texts again from friends being like, oh my gosh, Loki season 2 that I hadn't heard from in 2 years. So take that for what it's worth.
Yeah, Dan Gavosden, friend of the pod, huge fan of Loki season 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That actually makes me really happy to hear that.
Right?
I don't think we're finished with Kang. That's my other takeaway watching this.
Okay. I like that.
Plot-wise, it makes sense to never see Loki again and or Kang again. Like, you could just tie it up and say Loki for eternity is sitting there. And maybe like you get a cameo of like 1,000 years in the future and he's old and rugged or something, but he's still holding it. Like, okay, that could happen. Maybe he doesn't age there. I get it. But they could leave it at that. But between watching it again and then the news that Michael Waldron is actually going to be the head writer now of Kang Dynasty, which the article clarified Kang Dynasty. So I still haven't seen a name change to that is the first thing. And combine that with the fact that they're bringing in Michael Waldron. It doesn't guarantee Kang, but he was the original creator of Loki season 1 where Kang is a huge factor.
Right.
I think they're going to find a way that he's still the character. I think.
By the way, also...
And I would be disappointed if it wasn't that, to be honest.
Yeah, it would certainly feel...
Like if they want to add Doctor Doom as well or something, and he's involved somehow, great. But I don't think you can just say, well, just because of the hype buildup, I don't want them to go, oh, that's it. That was it.
It would be a hard left turn. Like, I just don't... I think that... whenever we came into the finale, there were the conversations about like, oh my gosh, they go so all in on Kang. What are they going to do if Disney has to let Jonathan Majors go? And we talked about how off base that was. On the same, or I guess like on the other hand, I feel like the people that are like, well, okay, there you go. That's their clear off ramp to get Kang out. Like, I'm not really sure that that's the case either. Like in part because it doesn't really do anything to address or even try to address the threads left dangling from Quantumania, where it's very clearly that movie, like, that was trying to set up Kang, and it shows the Council of Kangs, and then we even get a reference to the events of Quantumania in the Loki finale.
Well, and isn't the takeaway from the finale that theoretically Loki can now prevent multiversal war with what he's doing, right? Isn't that kind of what he's doing? He's not allowing these branches to collide, but we know that multiversal war is coming.
Yeah.
So that means that at some point, the way Loki's doing it is going to fail, right? Or there's going to be a loophole.
Well, and I'm not even sure that. I guess
so.
That's
AKA
true.
Kang could still be there. I mean,
yeah, I need to see, and this is where I need to go back and watch Loki season 2, because I wasn't sure if he's supposed to be preventing the multiversal war, or if what he's doing is just preventing, like, the loss of everything, like, that was happening.
So I'm so glad that you freaking brought that up, because that was one of the things that we were a little bit unsure of, and I wrote it down quote for quote. Okay, a couple lines.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Like, for example, He Who Remains does say to Ravonna that they already won the war and that Ravonna commanded the army. So, like, we were discussing, like, when does that happen? Right. He's always talking about it in actual past tense, that there was one that he did actually win.
Okay, and that tracks.
He says specifically, the loom is a failsafe where if there are too many branches, it deletes the ones that aren't supposed to be there. The loom prevents a brutal war in which nothing survives, not even the sacred timeline. So I don't know if that's answering what you're saying.
No,
but
yeah.
To clarify that from the last episode, basically, Loki's options were kill Sylvie, in which case she would never kill He Who Remains, in which case the TVA could continue to operate as normal, but he has to kill Sylvie. That's option 1. Or he says, well, why don't I just let Sylvie kill you, and then I'll let the loom fail. And then He Who Remains says, well, the loom is set up as a failsafe that if you do that, it will start pruning every other branch like we saw, except for the sacred timeline, to which he is then affected by all the people that are losing their lives because on all these branch timelines, because that thing is happening. So then he says,
the TVA would go away, right?
Yeah,
if
correct.
that were to happen. Okay.
Correct. And then He Who Remains says, easy to rebuild.
Right.
So I guess his plan would then be, if you do that, I'll just restart it, the whole thing. But I don't care about who dies in that process.
Right.
And then the third option was blow up the actual loom yourself, which would then blow up the sacred timeline. But then He Who Remains says that specifically, that action is what leads to the end of everything. Eventually then the war comes, and a war that ends everything. So it's not that, I don't think, if Loki blows it up, it's not that he's killing the timelines right then and there, but it's Kang saying that then is inviting the war, and it will happen, and that will end everything. So what that looks like still, we don't know.
Yeah.
Because then Loki opts for that option, right? And he blows it up, but then uses his own magic, because he's a god and not a human, to become the god of stories and keep that going, right? So that's the loophole he finds.
And that makes sense. I mean, not to get too heady here, but I guess the idea would be it's the past for He Who Remains and for Ravonna, at least if her mind had not been wiped. But it wouldn't be the past for all those other timelines, because those other timelines at the time that He Who Remains is giving his speech don't exist, because he's pruned them all. So it's like it would make sense to me. Like I think that if we meet like Kang again, for instance, or any of the Kangs that we saw in the Quantumania credit scene, I don't know that they would have any memory of the previous war with He Who Remains, right? Because they aren't the ones that were defeated. Like they're like, I don't know.
It's pre the war or post the war, basically. How about this? Pre the prunings or post the prunings, right? So there was if it's like a hourglass, you're saying there was a multiverse a long time ago, right? Where all those Kangs existed. They're all pruned down to one, and now we're back open again on the other side of it. So these new Kangs wouldn't know the old ones.
That's right. I think that, I mean, I know that the reason I'm saying it, we get so heady is because once we start getting into like how time functions in timelines that don't exist anymore and that are rebirthed, and also like what time even looks like when we're looking at a past like relative to the TVA. So I don't want to go like too far down that road, but I guess it is like, it seems to me that it could credibly be both. Like that happened, he won it the only way that he thought was possible, and now he knows that if he gives up that, like that one way that he's been able to kind of maintain just the sacred timeline, that it's going to go back into the kind of chaotic state. And then my question for you is, I remember in our finale, we talked about, or finale review, we talked some about like the incursions. And I know Greg and I talked about that some in the most recent Comic Book Club episode on the Jonathan Hickman stuff. Does this make sense to you that if the multiverse is allowed to exist, period, Kang's variants are going to, no matter what, ultimately figure out how to travel from one to the other, or at least engage with people from other timelines? And because in Multiverse of Madness, we're told that anytime someone from one timeline goes to another, that creates an incursion, or at least if they spend enough time there. Does it then make sense that by Loki allowing the multiverse to exist, Kangs will inevitably travel from timeline to timeline? And because that is inevitable, the incursions are inevitable, which then makes sense with what Kang was saying in Quantumania. And therefore, like the incursions are not like a force of nature in the same way that we think about them in like the Hickman run, but they are in an inevitability in the same kind of way. And so in that way, it is kind of rooted in Kang, and he is like the big bad villain in that, even if that's not what he's trying to do, what he is going to do in all of his forms would be what like breaks down everything. Is that how you're seeing this?
Yes, except the new role of the TVA is to prune every Kang variant.
Oh, right.
So if they stay up on it and don't get behind, their goal is not to prune anybody else or anything else. Their whole organization is just dedicated to getting rid of Kangs. So I think their effort, like Loki's effort, is to make sure that that's impossible for him to eventually meet another one.
Right.
So that person, Kang, that human being is just screwed, because all of the galaxy is just making sure he doesn't exist every time he's about to be born or whatever.
Yeah. Okay.
But that's where I say they could still play with that. Like maybe they fall behind, or maybe somebody like Mobius can't kill a Kang child.
Right.
Can't bring themselves to do it. Or, you know, a couple fall behind and it still leads to Loki then losing control somehow. Or it's still so inevitable that even with Loki's effort, it's inevitable.
Right. Which, and that would make sense, because I mean, I think theoretically there would be like an infinite number of them.
Oh, okay, kind of like the equation from the Loom. Like when the factor is infinite, how can you keep up?
Yeah. I mean, and the interesting thing there is, I think that like Hickman uses similar language, because I think like anyone that's talking about the theory of a multiverse generally talks about it in terms of there being infinite other like realities or possibilities, or however you want to look at it. But on the other hand, the Hickman run does really come to a head by highlighting like a finite number of universes, like, because it ends with there are only now 2 left, which does mean that. So it's a weird.
Well, maybe we still get there, or maybe they're doing it differently.
Yeah.
Okay, I got to blaze through a few more because we got to do the Marvels too. I do wonder what this all means for the Void and for Alioth, because Alioth and the Void was a construct of He Who Remains. And yet at the end of the finale, you see that shot of Ravonna in the Void, and very clearly, I think on the second watch, hinting at Alioth is there. And I just find that interesting. Like, is Loki going to keep that going? Does Loki want the Void and then if that's the case, the only purpose for the Void is for pruned things to go there. Right? That's the only purpose of it. So is it possible that that is where the Council of Kangs is? Because they're all getting pruned and going there.
Yeah.
Maybe that's how they're meeting up.
Yeah. I did wonder that. Although, are they actually pruning Kangs as people, or are they preventing them from becoming Kang?
We don't know because we never saw it. The only reference we get is the Ant-Man one where they say it was handled. So how do they even know to what level was it handled? Yeah, and then Timely, they don't give him the book, and then he just never becomes genius in that way.
So I guess it's like in that, like if they can find ways to prevent the ascension, like that.
Maybe pruning is the last ditch effort.
Right.
But they did clarify that Ravonna commanded the armies. So does that mean that in the past, Ravonna actually wrangled Goliath with He Who Remains? In which case, is that storyline not over? Does that Ravonna figure out how to do it again? Thought that was interesting.
That is interesting.
Just like with everything, everywhere, all at once, I love that they play with this idea in the finale that if there are infinite variations of the same thing and infinite versions, when you finally try to grasp what infinite means, it's really easy as a human to just feel like all of it doesn't matter. It's all worthless. Like if I punch this guy in this one, who cares? Because there's another one where I'm not punching this guy. And it's like, what does any of this mean? And I kind of like that they show that well here with how callous Loki starts getting when he's doing the infinite versions of the same sequence. So like by the very end, like if he can just restart, then Victor Timely turning into spaghetti stops mattering to him. At some point, it's like, just who cares if it fails? And I kind of like how they show that where he's like, good job. Yep, one foot after the other. I told you don't drop that. You can do it. You're so brave. You're so brave. And it's like, I thought that was a perfect representation and a shout out to that movie, kind of.
Yeah. I do like that. And it's very Loki.
My last observation, I was really moved emotionally by Mobius's role in all this and what it's like for him to not have a place anymore. Like he doesn't now want to sit in the TVA just pruning Kangs, and he has that knowledge. Now he knows what his life was like, where he had boys and he was a jet ski salesman. And I don't think I fully caught the impact of that moment where he just wants to watch it. And then Sylvie says, what are you going to do? And Natalie Holt's score is playing this like heart-wrenching, Inception, Days of Future Past, like we're waking up in the future, slow motion type, montage. And it really moves me. And then it cuts to Mobius with just that shot of him looking into the sun at his house. And he says, I think I'm just going to sit here and let time pass. And I didn't catch why that line was important. Well, obviously, now that line's important because he's never had time pass. He's always been outside of time. And I think there's this really reflective shot of him just looking at like this life and being like, it would be nice to have a family and grow old and die eventually and let time pass. And then that's why to show that last shot of Loki being able to hear that as if he is like a god running the whole thing, but he can't interact. So it's got this like, Loki's got this amazing smile, but also like a tear where it's like he misses his friend, but he's sacrificing, but he can still hear him, but he can't interact. And just that last actual shot really moved me this time. That's my final.
Yeah. No, I mean, and Holt, I mean, that's a well-earned shout out to Holt there because...
And how different for Loki that when he doesn't know what to do in the most dire of circumstances, he consults with his friends. Like it's so like the coolest scenes of the finale are that he goes back to Sylvie and says like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do after doing this thousands of times. And then that scene with Mobius, where Mobius gets really real. Yeah, it really gets me. Where he's like, what would you do? And then, like it's definitely hinted that was Mobius that did that. And he's carrying that burden.
Well, it's a fascinating place for Mobius to be, and Sylvie sort of like foreshadows this a bit, but this idea that he's like, once you know that both exist, can you really have either? Like, if he knows now that the TVA is a thing and that like this is going on, can he go and just kind of put that out of his mind and be a jet ski salesman again? But then also if he were...
will that feel meaningless eventually?
Yeah, but then to go back to the TVA and always know that like he could be experiencing life, and it's this weird like one is like which one is more real, and I think that's the like neither really. It just kind of depends on how he looks at it and what he looks at as like his true life. And I really like where they left him as a character, and I don't know what they do from there, but it was like a perfect place for him in the same way that I thought the finale was for Loki, for all the reasons that we've talked about.
So I really enjoyed it. It's our joint ranking, at least number one, I think. Is that fair? Can we end it there and say it's the number one?
I think that's which. Do you mean Loki season 2 specifically, or Loki as a series?
I'm separating them out. For me, I would go. Well, I said WandaVision first, but for our joint ranking, I think it's season 2, WandaVision, and then maybe Moon Knight or season 1. That would be our joint ranking right now.
That's probably fair. It's hard for me because I really do like.
I know.
Viewing it as a. Well, I just like viewing it as like a part 1 and part 2 of the same story at this point. And that's almost how I've been telling people that haven't seen it yet to go into it.
I know. It'd be so hard to watch season 2 without 1 and understand what's even happening, any of it. Yeah. So I get that. But I think we should still separate it because that's also an advantage for it, like an unfair advantage. Like a lot of the other shows we're grading against didn't get a chance to come back to those characters.
Yeah, that's
so,
fair.
We already are invested, all this stuff. So I if you're okay with it, I think our official rankings on our website, the ffwpodcast.com, should be Loki season 2, WandaVision, Moon Knight, Loki season 1. That's what I think the top 4 should be.
I think that's fair. I don't know about Moon Knight versus Loki season 1, but that's a conversation for another day. If we're not ranking Loki season 1, then I'll leave it at I do think Loki season 2 is the correct number 1 at this point. Okay.
Why don't you tell our listeners about the dope thing we're doing with OPB, and then we can get into a briefer reflection on the Marvels.
Yeah. This, like we were saying, this is really cool. It's a fun time to be following along with some of the things that we're following along on Friends from Work Plus with the comic side, because getting into the holidays, we have a little page set up over on organicpricebooks.com where you can get all of the Friends from Work recommended books for the holiday season. They're all books that are available now, or should be, at least as of the recording of this. And they are some that have been referenced in projects, both on the Marvel side and outside of that. And then there are some that are good reading for things that are coming next year. There are some that we've been reading in the comic book club. So it's like a wide range of things, but it's really easy for you to find all of them by just going to Organic Price Books, and you will see a Friends from Work tab.
We've made it. We have our own tab.
We've made it. It's it has made my job way easier now because I don't even really have to say anything. I just say go to the website and then click on our tab, and it does all the work.
Literally picks specifically curated by you, which is you love curating. So what a dream mashup. It's organicpricebooks.com, and you'll see the tab there. Friends from Work. It'll say like Robbie's picks to a recommended reading.
There are a couple of different categories there. And our hope is that if you are either someone that's just wanting to get into comics and
that's right,
you don't really know where to start, there's one section that's called Intro to Comics, and it's intentionally stuff that I think people that don't really know how to engage with the medium, I think it's a really good, some good on-ramps. But also, if you are looking for some Christmas gifts for comics readers in your life, or just fans of some of these properties, then we've also kind of structured some of that with that in mind. So yeah, go check it out. This is a fun next chapter in the OPB FFW partnership.
Absolutely.
And as always, if you do, remember please to use our code Friends from Work to get an additional discount on already insanely well-priced comics.
Do it. We'll be right back. So we were just home for the holidays, and my wife and I found a couple of interactions really interesting about the Marvels. I had 2 different times where someone texted me or in person was like, "Oh, so I heard the Marvel sucks, right?" And I was like, "Oh, no, I think it's actually really fun." And in both instances, the person had not seen the film. And then I said, "Oh, you didn't like it?" I said, "Oh, I haven't seen it. My wife just told me it sucks, that she read something." And I said, "Oh, she didn't like it either?" And he said, "Oh, actually, she actually hasn't seen it. She just read this online." I kid you not, that was the interaction. And it just is a perfect glimpse at this negative culture we're trying to fight here on Friends from Work. Because I was having this conversation, I'm like, okay, so you haven't seen it, but you already don't want to see it because you've heard it sucks. And your wife told you it sucks. That's who you heard it from, because she read something online or watched something on YouTube and she hasn't seen it. She hasn't even seen the film.
Yeah.
And she's passing along that it sucks. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable moment where I'm like, I don't even know why is that the moment? Why is that the culture we want to reciprocate as a culture?
Right.
Why is that the piece of our culture that we're like, you know what, we trying to take down movie theaters and movie studios? Is that what we want? Is the end game that we don't want any movies? Like, watch it first. If you don't like it, then you can say it sucks. But to actually just like be passing that along is so funny to me. So the whole premise of this is like, I still had a freaking blast. Me and only one other guy in the theater, and I laughed out loud to myself, and the guy in the front row was loving it, and it was just us two. Just us two. So while all you guys are hating on it, I'm loving life. So I hope you're happy. I'm in the theater watching it, loving it.
I love this.
So sue me. Like, I'm going to go freaking enjoy the movies I want to watch. Thank you.
I was going to try, today was going to be my first chance to maybe see it again before we recorded. And I actually tried, and the theater, the Alamo nearest that we always go to, was sold out for the showing this morning.
Oh my gosh. For the Marvels?
Yeah. For the Marvels.
Good. And that's crazy. So, that blows my mind. Holy crap.
Crazy. Yeah. Like random showing on a Saturday. Just so apparently, not everybody hates it, I suppose.
No, I don't think, you know what I mean. Our listeners know how I feel about that. Like, I'm ranting to 2% of people, not most people. But, and again, I don't think it's the best film ever. So again, I'm not going to give these disclaimers every time we talk about it. Same with Quantumania. But I do think the overarching picture is interesting. It's a unique moment, especially while I liked both of these projects so much. And then just so tired of talking and like having to defend it. I'm like, did you watch Loki? It's like one of the best things ever made. Stop talking.
One of the weird things,
I'm ramped up
as kind of my overarching thought before we jump in, that I was thinking about this the other day for a different reason, but it's like once we decide what the narrative is around a movie, and this is beyond even some of like the Rotten Tomatoes critiques and all that, like it's just interesting how then everything is made to fall in line with that narrative. Like, for instance, if there's a movie that is just getting rave reviews, then generally people look at every element of that movie through that lens, even though like a movie can have incredible performances and be super well written and have a really bad score, like not Rotten Tomatoes score, like film score. Like there's no reason why those have to necessarily correlate. But I think that sometimes people just give everything the benefit of the doubt. And in the same way, I look at certain projects, like there are certain movies that I don't really care about, but I love the music. So like I'll listen to the score all the time, but the movie itself doesn't really do it for me. And that is also a possibility. I'm not just saying music. I just think that's like an easy example here where it's like, whenever I tell people, oh man, you know what score is really great? It's this one. And they're like, oh, really? Like that movie? Okay. Like even
those
like
could be
Ant-Man and
separate
the
things.
Wasp used to be like
the
same.
The
like,
second film.
I would tell people like, oh, I love the music in this. And everyone's like, that's so random.
I told you about that Reddit comment where someone was like, the Ant-Man music might last for a long time. And all the Redditors were like, really? Ant-Man?
Yeah.
like, wait, well, actually the music I'm just saying is really great.
And it's because they're not actually thinking of the music. What they're thinking of is like, oh,
it's but all that's thrown into one pot.
And so even whether or not it's well based or based in any reality, and I say all that to say, at some point, really, really early on, because of the strike, because of these articles that were coming out about Marvel, whatever, there was this like, oh, this is going to be a tough one. This is going to be a tough one for Marvel. And then the movie released. And that was all of the conversation was like,
what a tough one.
Oh man. And so now you talk to people and they're like, I heard it's tough.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
And it's like, what
I just don't think we're watching the same movie.
Yeah.
Or they're not watching it.
They're not watching it is the thing. Yeah, the numbers bear that out, unfortunately. Yes. Like it's just not. But I know. But I think that's
those are separate conversations. Like I'm bummed that the numbers aren't bearing themselves out because that means other people don't care as much. But it doesn't mean that I can't, as an isolated instance, still enjoy these projects a lot, even if the numbers are going down. And by the way, let me just remind everyone for a quick second, 10 seconds. The numbers, there are so many factors other than just superhero fatigue or Marvel fatigue. I mean, they were on a writer's strike. They couldn't promo it. Secondly, Disney is shooting themselves in the foot by how fast these new movies are now releasing on Disney+. So you're not encouraging people to go to the theater. Also, Disney corporate's having all kinds of stuff. Bob Iger's saying stuff that he regrets, and then the Chapek stuff. And there's so many other factors that are playing into the movie's not doing as well in the box office. My point is, just because the movie's not doing well in the box office doesn't just mean movie sucks. So therefore, that's what's happening. There are so many other things. In fact, the movie doesn't suck, but all these other peripherals are causing it to do poorly, and that's a bummer. But it's a separate conversation from what I'm about to say in regards to the actual film. I'm literally losing my voice. I'm talking so fast. Sorry. Holy cow.
And there are conversations there to have that I'm a couple things I'm excited for us to talk about once we get past the holidays. But yeah, I think what I'm really excited about for this section is I've talked a lot about Loki with people, or listened to a lot of people tell me like their thoughts on Loki. And like I said, everyone seems to love it as we did. Other than just like our Discord, I don't really know anyone that's seen the Marvels yet outside of like our community. So I'm really excited to like jump back into that world with you having just seen it.
You and I both loved our first Quantumania experience. I still really like Quantumania, but you went a second time with people that were unsure about it, and then you kind of saw some of the flaws through their perspective, and then you've come around to be like, I still really like the film. I really like it, but I see what they're saying. I just don't think if you go watch the Marvels again, you'll feel that here. I think you'll be like, I really enjoyed it. Like you thought it was maybe like an 8 out of 10, right?
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
That's kind of where I had it. And I don't think you're going to go in and go, oh gosh, I actually now see this and this, and now it's a 6 out of 10. It's like, no, it's not perfect. It's not the best film they've ever done. And you'll see that in our rankings, but I had a blast, and I still had a blast. Like the jokes are still funny. They're not dumb now just because it's been a few weeks. Okay. I'll start there and I'll say, I always like to start here. I just don't understand, I guess, visually what people that complain about CGI are talking about anymore. I guess I think like that's maybe now become a thing where people know they can get clicks by saying, well, Marvel sucks at CGI and like they know they get clicks, but I guess I don't even know what they're talking about. I absolutely adore, that's the note I wrote, the space visuals. Like right off the bat from the get-go, there are like 3 to 4 times where for a 2-second clip, a shot of either Monica or Carol flying can look a little cheesy or green screened. And I get that. Like a lot of movies struggle with that. But people then see those 4 shots, a total of 10 seconds in the whole film, and they go, Marvel sucks at CGI. And they totally then discredit how cool the Kree spaceships look like, the jump points, like how cool so much of the visual effects were, other than maybe 3 sequences that you don't like. So yes, I see those sequences, but I also see all the dope, stuff that they did. And so I just don't buy that train.
It's also a movie that, like, because we've talked about certain projects like Loki, actually, that because they have the ability to do so much practically and just set it around the TVA, and that's sort of an aesthetic in itself.
For sure.
That they make a point to like they lean into that. And I think that they really try to use whatever their VFX budget is conservatively. Like, okay, like we are going to try to do a few things really well instead of a lot of things. But the thing about the Marvels is they don't really have that option just because of the power set of the main characters, because of just the format of the movie. So it's like they're having to do a ton from really the very beginning all the way through of CGI stuff. And I thought it looked great.
My understanding of is that the people are the hardest thing. Right? So like I think about like how good Rogue One looks, right? I think even though Rogue One looks amazing, the sequence of like the Star Destroyers crashing into each other, I think that's easier to animate. Like the loom exploding in Loki 2 is easy to VFX because nothing in it is real. It's just literally a computer program. Where they have a hard time, and every film has a hard time, is like the crazy detail in a face that's supposed to be flying. Or the crazy detail on like the Hulk that's supposed to look like a person. That's harder, I think, than just, hey, spaceships in space going through jump points. But when you say it's bad CGI, I feel like it lumps it into a category that it's so far from belonging in. And I'm also lumping in the effects of the costumes and the planets and the creativity there as well into one kind of visual department. So anyways, wow. Because I went through this in the theater and I brought my notebook, and sorry, I'm talking so much. Wow, I'm on one today. I don't know. I'm sorry if I talk too much, but I just wrote my notes down linearly. So literally, unlike the Loki ones we just did, I'm just going to blaze through these because I wrote down some of the actual quotes that were funny. Because when we did the episode, we couldn't remember some of the funny stuff.
Oh, yeah.
And I told myself, don't get too hyped, talk slower. And here I am just rambling. Kamala's dad says, is Captain Marvel pressuring you in any way? That made me laugh. Is she pressuring you in any way? Yeah. I love the visualization and the idea of the space elevator. Like what a cool idea. Like something about that makes me feel like that's possible in real life, like in 100 years. Something about like an elevator that goes all the way to the space station that's got like a core. I love that. And I just love that Marvel always does I was talking about this in the car today. They do the world outside your window so well. And, one of the ways they do that is like, even when we're doing space stuff, let's put some stuff in there that is kind of believable. It's like, let's deal with the property damage in Spider-Man Homecoming and not just let that go. Let's deal with the ramifications of if these superheroes were real, they might need accords in Civil Wars. They might need some regulation. And I do think that they still do that well in some of the space crazy cosmic films, by doing little details like that, where it's like, that actually feels like a really believable way for them to be transporting themselves up and down.
Yeah. No, I like that.
I don't love Monica flying. Do you remember early on in the movie she can fly? It feels kind of
she's like trying to learn how to fly, right?
Well, then she's like, I don't know how to do it, but here we go. And just does it. And I'm like, it feels kind of out of nowhere. It also looks bad. That's the worst looking visual is her taking off. Again, it feels like, it looks like Wanda leaving Westview. Remember?
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't even know story-wise, like how she's flying or why. Like I understand that she has to catch Kamala. That's the thing. Right. But why can she all of a sudden just fly? Like why does Fury go like, yeah, you can just do it. Do it.
It's weird.
I don't love that.
It's weird too because in the comics, and maybe we've just been saying this for years, and the movies have never actually told us that Carol travels at light speed. I feel like I know it was the light speed engine, and that's how she got her powers. So I think we always just kind of assumed. But what's kind of strange now about having Monica's character is, one thing that Marvel does for everything that they change, they generally try to give characters pretty similar like power sets because they recognize that like that's how it's going to direct back to the comics or how people that are coming in from the comics will have some sort of context. Obviously, there was a lot of talk about what happened with Miss Marvel, and we talked about that during the Miss Marvel show. But Monica's character in the comics, kind of one of her main attributes is that she actually can travel at the speed of light. And so they visualize that very differently there than the way that they do with Captain Marvel in the comics, where she's more kind of like, she flies in the same way that like Thor flies.
Or Superman. She looks like Superman. That's the...
Yeah. I struggle there too because like Superman is technically, I guess, also supposed to be able to travel at like insane blink of an eye speeds. But like it looks like that. But yeah, in the comics, like the way Monica will travel is almost like a light ray where it's like she's here and then she like travels through like...
Okay, so that would have been cooler then. Even in that moment. To have her like kind of disappear into like a like
yeah, that's true. Yeah.
So I don't like her just taking off like old school style. Here's my thing with flying. Here's my thing with flying in general. Flying is so cool and it would be such an elite superpower. Like compared to a lot of the superpowers, the ability to fly. Like I often think about how tough it'd be for Spider-Man to traverse certain areas. Like I'm driving through National, I'm like, he'd be able to swing around through here, but like there's a lot of not building here. Like where would he?
That's why you gotta use those web zips.
Exactly. And that's why I like the golf course shout out in Homecoming where it's like, oh, I gotta run now, right? But I think to keep it cool, I just would rather have less people do it. Like I don't want very many people to fly. I don't want it. Like there's a part of me that's even not that cool with Thor flying. But then the Bifrost thing, I'm like, okay, I get it. But like, I would rather them choose like 5 characters and say, these are the flying characters. Everyone else can't fly. That's my thing. Like, I don't want to keep adding people. Like, does one need to be able to fly?
I do like that Thor can't fly without either Mjolnir or Stormbreaker, right?
Yeah, or the Bifrost picking him up. That's not really flying, I guess, but...
Yeah, but I do like that. Like, it's not just that he...
Sure, full team. The amount of people that can just start on the ground and take off in a like Superman, we need to keep that to a very minimum. Like, Carol can do it? Okay, great.
Yeah.
But then that's the only one then. Let's not have everyone be able to do that.
Well, in part because, like, if you look, and this has happened in the comics too, like, when the X-Men were first introduced... One of the original core team was Angel, whose only power was that he could fly.
Yeah.
But that was a big deal because no one else on the team could fly.
Exactly. And
but now it's like...
You're going to have to keep leveling up the villains so high to match Carol. Like if everyone can now fly, you have to now have a villain that can beat 2 flying people coming at them at light speed. So how does that villain, it's just like it becomes this escalating scale that I don't like. Like I would now rather you be like, Carol is so special.
Yeah.
That it's like her and Thor and it was Vision, but not Vision. Like they're the superpowers. They can do this,
Yeah. That's true. Yeah, I forgot about Vision. But then again, it's part of the genius of what they did with Vision in Infinity War. But I so agree because I also that's one of those things
what a tangent.
Whenever I look back, well, I think it is, but it's also something that I am kind of just keeping an eye on as the MCU continues to expand. And we've talked about this before, like the world just starts to get, every time you introduce a new character, I think you do have to be really careful about like what that opening story is, what the stakes are, what their powers are, because it's really hard
to go back.
Yes.
Yes, now that you made Carol this powerful, how do you now say, well, actually, she can be defeated by this?
Which is, by the way, one of my big fears in general that I trust I trust their ability to handle this, but I do get nervous about how kind of crazy the scale is of some of the projects that we're getting even now, and knowing that at some point, whether you're talking about mutant stuff or talking about like the Thunderbolts, there's that like, okay,
we're total lockstep here.
They need to be careful.
That's why things like Kryptonite were invented, because they're like, well, now this person is so untouchable, we got to give them some way, and that's what they're going to have to do. They're going to have to find a way that like Monica, there's like she has some weakness we don't know. Like when she travels through reality, it causes her to start aging. I'm making this all up, right?
Yeah.
But there's going to be some loophole that's like, it's not just a villain that kills her. It's like, the closer Carol gets to this sun, she is actually weak. Or, I'm making this up, but there's going to be something that is what they're going to have to do. Not just Kang. Because think about if Kang's the person, right? He's a human. So how does Kang beat Carol?
Yeah. Yeah.
If it ever actually comes to a fight. So, anyway, okay, hold on. Wow, what a tangent. It allows for things like the next line, which I love so much. Do you guys have a spaceship I could borrow? Which I love, because like, I don't fly. Is there like a spaceship here or something? I need more of that and less of the people that just fly away.
Well, and by the way, it is why I am ultimately happy with Kamala's family being around as long as they are. Like, I know we kind of talked about that in the first episode.
It was better here on the second watch.
Good. It like helps to ground it, and Fury does the same here, which I like. Like, that is one thing that I really appreciate about the depiction of Nick Fury in this movie is I like that he's still, even after everything that he's seen, and he's still like, it never comes off as him being like wide-eyed, like he's not surprised or shocked, but he still ultimately is like an Earth guy who has lived most of his life before he ever knew about, still, I mean, before he really knew about aliens, and certainly before he got like this far into it. And so those are the things that like I'm grateful that Marvel is keeping involved in these projects to anchor them, because as we are getting I think you could argue the same for Multiverse of Madness, by the way, with like the way that they use Christine in that movie, like reminding us that it's still like it's still about these like human people and what they've experienced in their life that is still relatable to things that we experience. And so being able to have that perspective rooted in the movie, I think, or to have the movie rooted in that perspective, I think is really important. Otherwise, it all starts to kind of become like gobbledygook.
Totally agree. Here we go. The attack on the Skrull planet, I think, is still devastating. And the aftermath of that is the highlight of the film in some ways for me. The actual, how that goes down, and then that argument and then Valkyrie showing up, and then them being like, we didn't need your help. You're making things worse. And then Kamala actually getting to witness that side of Carol and like getting that vulnerability. In general, I think putting an emphasis on Carol being more human and less Lightspeed girl, it helps her case. It helps her case with the viewers and with people like Kamala. Yeah. So I think that was a highlight for me. Here we go. Hot take of the day. I don't think Darwin is that bad of a villain.
Yeah.
the shock thing. A lot of people online are really kind of laying into her. By the way, did you know that's Tom Hiddleston's wife? Did you know that? That's Tom Hiddleston's wife. How did we not talk about that on the first episode? They had a crazy week. They had a week together where he like went to her movie, and that's his wife. So that's cool. Crazy. Look, I don't think she's a top 10 villain. I don't think she's probably average to me, but people are talking about it like it's a terrible villain. I don't think it's poorly acted as much as people are saying. Again, not the best one. I'm not saying that. I don't think it's poorly acted, and people are talking like she has no motivation or stuff. I'm like, I feel like it's pretty clearly laid out what she wants. She witnessed Captain Marvel ruin the Kree, and then she made it her life mission to just reestablish the Kree. She's not taking over the whole world. She wants Hala to survive. It's not like she's killing everybody. I don't know. It's not the best.
And it's like there's the vengeance thrown in because she's picking places that are going to hurt Carol if she
correct.
Like, pulls from those. So
correct. And she still doesn't like the Skrulls. Like that's a long running thing.
Right.
Again, not the best, but come on. Let's ease up on that a little bit.
Yeah. No, I think that I understand that critique, and she definitely plays it.
Totally agree.
Like it's pretty maniacal. Campy at times.
Yeah. Yep.
But I think that's maybe my one thing that I'm going to look out for on my second viewing. I think you will think it's less campy on the second viewing than you maybe did the first one. I think you're going to watch and go like, there's not as much camp here as I thought. That's what I think you're going to do. Because that's what I was going to say is I don't want the performance to detract from what I do think is a pretty well set out motivation.
Especially for how short the film is.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is something else I want to talk about in another episode.
I laughed out loud this time when they're trying to come up with a name for Monica, and Carol interjects and goes, Vision. Oh wait, sorry. I thought that was pretty good. I thought it was so refreshing to see some personality for both Carol and Brie Larson, because I think she's a little stiff in general on screen a lot. And I felt like she was more settled in here. Again, like Dark World, a step up. I'd love to see another step in the next film. The singing stuff from the Singing Planet, I talked about how, does it go on a little long? Just for fun, I timed it. It's 5 minutes on the dot. And it's 5 minutes total from the time that they arrive and explain that this planet only talks with singing to the point where Kara goes, stop. We got to talk. And it stops the singing. So I think I overblew that because not only is it's not just 5 minutes of singing, they're talking in between that. So it's probably only actually literally, maybe it's 90 seconds of singing / dancing. And they're allowed to do that. They're allowed to be creative for 90 seconds. So I'm easing up on that. It's 5 minutes of the movie, everybody. Relax.
Yeah. And it was a really totally unique thing that we haven't gotten.
Yep. The uniform reveal on that planet is so dope. When all three of them come out in their full new costumes, Monica wearing the white and black thing, and then Kamala having the full kind of like classic Miss Marvel look with the scarf.
Yeah.
Really cool. Again, stop me, buzz me if I need to stop anywhere. Here's another line. This is what Kamala brings to this team, and it's so fun. When they meet Darben on that ship, and she goes, "Where did you get that?" She goes, "My grandma. She sent it to me in the mail." But it's like, it's so perfect because she's not lying. She's not being funny. She's telling the truth. And just like, again, it's that juxtaposition of the world outside your window versus how ridiculous this is. Like, we're on a singing planet fighting this mega villain, and I have this bangle. But then also, this is a girl from Jersey who's just like, my grandma mailed it to me. And like, I love that stuff.
It makes me look forward to like Miss Marvel and Spider-Man interacting.
I want to see Miss Marvel with all those characters now. She's become like that character for me, where I'm like, I want to see the interactions with Kate Bishop like we did. I want to see the interactions with Spider-Man, with Daredevil, with Thor. You know, like Ant-Man. Oh, Ant-Man would be a great one because she's a huge fan of Ant-Man.
Yeah, that would be it. Which that one feels pretty, I mean, they all feel realistic because she's in the same city, well, not city, but area as Spider-Man.
Yep.
And she may be working with Scott's daughter now, I think, was the implication.
That's what she said. Ant-Man has a daughter. That's what she says. Okay, I'm almost finished. Rapid fire here. I still don't love that field scene. When you go back on your second watch for that field sequence. Right after the scene I'm talking about, they go to that field and then Carol kind of out of nowhere explains the background. I don't buy the emotion there. It's off pacing-wise. It's a little disconnected. It's too much of like oh no, you pulled me out from that planet, but actually let's all hug because we're okay. We're all here. Well, let's go team. It's just like, it's too quick. It doesn't work right. And I was thinking to myself, like, what happened to the actual planet? Like, there's no remorse for the fact that they just lost on Aladna and now Aladna's dead?
Yeah, do they ever address that again?
Never address it.
Wow, interesting.
So, like, in that field sequence, how can they go to, like, hugging that quickly when they just failed with her prince husband or whatever? Like, I think they're dead. I don't know.
Surely not.
They don't address it. So that I think that's a flaw either way. They should have some follow-up. Something. Yeah. Obviously, still one of the best lines. Are you praying? Well, don't stop now. Amen. That's, you know what he says.
Oh, yeah.
The fight at the very end is dope. It's the right length. It's not too long. The fight between the three of them and Darben is dope. We talked about that. We like the twist of her still trying to manipulate this. Like, even though she's doing a resource thing, she still kind of wants the power at the end. Yeah. I still don't fully understand why the second bangle just instantly disintegrates her. Do you? I still don't get why she dies so fast when she puts the second bangle on. Because Kamala wears two, doesn't kill her. Is it just because the two she's trying to create the jump point?
I think it's maybe she's just not, like, is it like a like holding an infinity stone thing where she's just not powerful enough to be able to.
That's one explanation.
Although Ronan was, which is kind of interesting. But I asked that because wasn't a big part of Kamala's, like, when she's revealed at the end of the Miss Marvel series to be a mutant, I think that I took that as like her powers were not given to her by the bangle, but because of her powers, she's able to like have a certain connection with the bangle that maybe is unique. And so I don't know if maybe it's like to wear both of those for anybody else is
she's gifted extra resistance to it kind of thing.
Yeah. I guess that's what, at this point, that's what makes sense to me. Because there are, like, in the comics, I think it's like, you know, people that are, well, that's not true. I think you do have normal people wear both bands.
It's always those little human nature suspension of belief things that make me wonder, where it's like, okay, if you lay out the rules fully, then I can buy in and I get it. But when you break your own rules in the universe, I don't know. And that's one where I'm like, did I miss something there? Another one is, it's a little bit funny to me that we've seen, okay, go back to Captain Marvel, the first movie. The last shot of Captain Marvel is she looks at the scrolls, Carol does, and then she blasts at light speed with their ship, like Star Wars, like hyperspace.
Yeah.
And yet here, when she goes to try to save Monica, it's kind of funny to me that Monica doesn't look like she's that far away. Like, I don't know distance. She looks like she's a mile away in space, and Carol can't get there. It's like a shot of Carol going like,
I did think
and she's still late, but like 2 seconds ago, we saw she can go light speed and instantly get there. That's where I say, like, are you breaking your own rules? Here's my headcanon. You ready? Headcanon, straight up. Just like in Rogue One, I'm going to treat Carol's ability kind of like Star Wars in hyperspace, where it's like, if she turns it on, the light speed nature, then she can like go, but she can't stop. She can't do that for 50 feet. Yeah. It's like, I'm going to blast through space and time and go, you know, whatever. Galaxies away at light speed, or I can fly really fast, but it's like a short distance, right? Like it's like a short sprint and a long sprint. That's my headcanon. So she doesn't, there's not enough space for her to like jump to light speed because she'd go right through that thing.
I think that is sort of what I was thinking just now. So I feel like something that makes more sense to me, because
it's funny, but it's headcanon.
Otherwise she would always be like all of her movements in life would be at light speed. And I don't like, she's not the Flash.
Right. It'd basically be teleporting everywhere, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's how fast light speed is. Light speed.
So I think you're right. I think it's like, and we've only seen that in that context, to your point. Like, even when she's coming down through the ship in Endgame, like, I think the idea is she's entering the atmosphere super, super fast. But even like when she's going down through it,
that's the same speed she flew towards Monica, right? That's what you're saying. Even in Endgame.
Yeah.
It's fast, but it's not like uncatchable.
So that, that makes sense to me. I'll go with you there.
Last 3 notes. Ready? The main theme that Laura Cartman came up with is really dope. You're going to like it when you hear it again.
I know. Really I need to listen to that score. I've listened to Loki a good bit, and I need to give the Marvel some attention now.
Here we go. I still wish that Carol reigniting the sun had more ramifications for Hala. They still could have done that better. Like, don't show Carol come out of it. Show Carol beat up from it. Show her exhausted from it because she put all of her power into this sun. Show something. That was another chance to give us a look at vulnerability. And instead, it's just like, oh, she can fly through a literal sun unscathed and totally by herself restart the sun. That's absurd power.
Yeah.
Missed opportunity there, in my opinion. And that's lastly, fair. I love Haley Steinfeld and I love Kate so much. And I just rewatched Across the Spider-Verse, so now I'm in like Haley Steinfeld world.
Yeah, that was me right after we saw the Marvels the first time.
I'm so excited for her character, Kate, that I think is dope. And that interaction is so fun. Like if it's just one of those shots with Kamala and Kate where I'm like, this is everything I like about these two characters. Like just to see them in the room is cinema to me, just because I like them both so much. So I'm excited to see more of Kate Bishop. That's my notes.
I also think it'll be interesting. I'm realizing, other than Guardians, which is such a unique thing for a lot of reasons, we really haven't had a team movie per se. Like, I guess you could also argue Eternals, but even that, just because the way the movie's structured is pretty different. But like, thinking back to just what the Avengers films were, like, aside from like the characters involved, just the dynamic of those movies is something that really defined the MCU for so long. Like, because Civil War falls into that as well. Like, that very much has that same sort of dynamic. Mm-hmm. And I'm just realizing we haven't lived in that.
Great point.
in that world. So I think it's going to be fun to get both like Thunderbolts and some Young Avengers stuff.
Any straight team up at this point is going to kill, I think. If you just made an Avengers movie where it's not even great, but just to see all these new characters together, like think about that. We've already had this conversation 100 times about like, I want to see Moon Knight with Daredevil, and I want to see, Doctor Strange with Wanda. We got that. But, I want to see follow-ups in all these. I want to see Kamala with Ant-Man. We haven't had a team up. We've had these mini team ups, I should say.
Yeah, it's definitely, they've been doing like the Winter Soldier move a lot.
Okay. So I'm sorry I talked so much. This is how we're going to wrap the episode. Our final ranking of this. And we go back and forth on this a lot, like if we even should rank it, but we can flex on this. A couple people have asked for our preference rankings. I'll probably post those somewhere.
I know I need to update my my Letterboxd list as well.
And our website. I need to update our website. So for Disney Plus, this is what we're settling on, I guess, for now. This is what I have on my phone. Loki Season 2, WandaVision, Loki Season 1, 3, then Moon Knight, She-Hulk, Hawkeye, Miss Marvel, Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's the order there.
Yep.
Stop me on our joint rankings where you think the Marvel should fit. I have it kind of smack dab in the middle is where I think it should be.
One thing I want to say real quick there, just because I may forget, because we are coming up on What If Season 2, we at this point, because we only have one animated series, not really counting I Am Groot, because that's sort of its own thing also.
Yeah, good point.
We just decided not to rank What If for now. We probably will ultimately do, I think, an animated, like a new Marvel Studios animated list, because we do have a few coming out now between Marvel Zombies, X-Men 97, Spider-Man Freshman Year, What If Season 2. So we actually will have a but I think still we keep that separate just because it really is like a different medium. So I just wanted to address that.
So we're in lockstep, I think, on the Marvels. Not their best film, not our favorite experience, but definitely far from the bottom, in my opinion, and better than I think a lot of people think. So I don't think it's going to touch. So Endgame 1, Infinity War 2, No Way Home 3, Guardians 1, 4, Ragnarok 5, Civil War 6. We go back and forth on those three all the time. Homecoming 7, Winter Soldier 8, Black Panther 9, Iron Man 10. I still don't think the Marvels touches those, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
The Avengers 11, no. Wakanda Forever 12. This is about where I would say Wakanda Forever 12, Shang-Chi 13, Black Widow 14, Far From Home 15, Love and Thunder 16, Multiverse of Madness 17. Okay, hold on. We're going to have to change this. We're going to have to change this. I think, okay, holy crap, this will be impossible to do right now. But I always think it's that chunk. It's the new Phase 4 and 5 stuff that's really good. I wouldn't say it's better than like the first Avengers, but that chunk is almost interchangeable to me. And I think this is in there. Like, I think the Marvels is better than the first Doctor Strange. Because Doctor Strange is 19 for us. That's about, like, I think it's better than that.
I think that's probably right.
But I also am reading this and I'm thinking Love and Thunder, you and I would both probably move up now, right? On that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's what's tricky too.
I would move Wakanda Forever down from that.
Yeah. Wakanda Forever has really only gone up for me, which I think is different for you.
What about Shang-Chi? Is that the bottom of that chunk? A lot of people say the top of that chunk.
Yeah. I think the Marvels would probably be it would be below Shang-Chi, but above, in that list, above Love and Thunder. But I think that Love and Thunder is going to move up. So it's kind of hard to.
Okay, we'll have to come back to it. Dang it.
Can you read off that chunk again, like starting with?
Well, I see. Again, the joint one is hard because you and I haven't gone through this enough. Like I don't love this, but I'm thinking like, is that my preference? I don't love a lot of this order.
Things change.
I know.
I think we hammered this out like a year ago.
I know. We'll have. Okay, you know what? We're out of time. We'll have to do it another time. I think. You agree, though, I think it's like 14 to 19.
Yeah. I think it's right around Multiverse of Madness.
Which is 17 right now for us. It's like, right. I think it's a better, for me, I think it's a better movie than Multiverse of Madness.
I think that might be right.
Maybe it's 17 then, specifically, and Multiverse of Madness moves down 1.
I think that's right.
Here's what we're gonna do, listeners. We're gonna get together on this, and you and I in general, I love ranking things for fun. Like I have a list of every golf course I've ever played, but it's getting weird because like there are so many different ways we could have done this. We could have also just said all of the phase 1, 2, and 3 stuff is in a vault and that's it. And now we start a new list. Also, the preference versus critic versus joint is weird because if we totally disagree, should we separate them out? But then on our website, it looks ridiculous to have all these separate rankings. Like there's no point in that. So there's like actual logistical hurdles to doing this, I guess is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I do like, we'll have to, I think I'm getting more and more comfortable with just doing preference rankings and doing less just trying to lean away from trying to get in the mind of an objective critic because that isn't really even a thing that exists.
Yeah. Like,
so I think that maybe we can circle back and rehash some of this.
Here are a few of my mind-blowing, preference things. Infinity War 1, Endgame 2, No Way Home 3, Civil War 4. I'm going to switch those. Civil War 3, No Way Home 4, Guardians 5, Ragnarok 6. None of that is crazy, right? Age of Ultron 7. Age of Ultron 7. For just fun.
Dude,
I'm
not going to fight you on that. I'm not going to
fight
you on that.
The Avengers 8, Iron Man 9, Guardians 3, 10, Far From Home, Homecoming, Quantumania 13 for your boy. Love and Thunder 14.
Love that.
Black Widow 15. Listen to this one. Iron Man 2 16. Ahead of Winter Soldier. Ahead of Winter
Soldier. The heart
Soldier.
wants what the heart wants.
Just give it to me. I have to go. I have to go home and get my child from her babysitter. So
I have to go to a wedding. Go celebrate marriage.
Marriage. Wow. I feel like I'm past the wedding phase now. I'm in like the kids phase, the kids' birthday party phase. You're still in the wedding phase? People still getting married in your life?
Yeah. I've got friends that are younger and cooler than me, I guess.
I don't like weddings. I'm just gonna say it. So there you go.
Wow. I'm more of a funeral guy myself.
Big funeral guy.
Did watch Wedding Crashers last week.
I was just gonna. Oh my gosh. I was debating in my head, should I morally get into a Wedding Crashers joke, yes or no? And then I voted no. Instead, you just stayed high level.
Greatest aphrodisiac.
Oh gosh. Will Ferrell's in that movie. I love our audience. Thank you for listening. Sorry I talk so much. We love these projects. I am so excited to have you listening to this podcast. Thank you to the new people that have found this, subscribed, have listened, have shared it, and have signed up for Friends from Work Plus. And again, don't forget all the cool things we have going on. Like if you like this podcast, we really could use your support. So if you want to sign up for Friends from Work Plus, like I said, we're giving away 3 Cinemark gift cards to people that do that. Be on the lookout in the next few weeks for all this merch. And again, you can use your discount codes. And this cool thing we're doing with Organic Price Books, that helps us if you buy from Organic Price Books. There are so many ways to get involved.
We're about to move into another little mini leg of our Phase 4 rewatch here, which is really perfect following this reflection because
I didn't even say that. Yeah.
We go to No Way Home right after this, which is kind of where we normally would go after Loki season 1. And that works really well after Loki season 2, but it also works after the Marvels because we're now seeing the ramifications of the multiverse being open. And that also all fits in with What If season 2, which is coming up in a couple weeks. So this is a perfect, from here, the next steps make a lot of sense and will be a lot of fun. And
I love the pace of the rewatch unintentionally, but because of the way Marvel has spaced out their content, it gives us just enough time to get 2 or 3 films in. Like in August, we did a couple, or September?
Yeah.
September. And now in December, but then you're right, there's new content coming out. So January will be new stuff. But then as soon as you get done with the new stuff sprinkled in, then I'm like, oh, it's kind of fun to go back now to where we were at in our journey.
Well, and it all lines up really well, actually,
so
weirdly,
far,
because of the timeline. And I think it might line up to where we're finishing right before Deadpool 3, which would mean our last MCU project in Phase 4 would be Multiverse of Madness. And I think that there are reasons to think that will be the perfect lead into.
And there's just something about the actual rewatch that's literally what our podcast was founded on.
Yeah.
And we how do I say this? Like you said with the In Defense Of, we really enjoy and we get pleasure out of bringing other people along for the journey and going like, look how cool this thing is. Don't you think so too? And then showing people something maybe they didn't know. So the rewatch episodes allow for that. That's fun. It's not our initial reactions. True. It's us thinking about it for a long time. So, and it allows us to maybe do like a rewatch together, right? On some Thursday nights and stuff where everyone can try to rewatch it. So
which I think we are picking back up again. And also we've got to go, but Friends from Work Plus, I think we're going to be doing a Daredevil season 3 finale watch here in preparation for Hawkeye and then Echo. So lots of group watch opportunities.
Sign up for our newsletter, the ffwpodcast.com. If you do nothing else, sign up for the newsletter. You can find the link on that website or go find us on Substack. And I say that just because that's actually an outlet where we can put a lot of this stuff in there and it doesn't take a ton of time like on a podcast for us to quick spit everything out.
Right.
And it's free, so do it. Thank you for listening. We love you guys. We'll see you next time right back here on Friends from Work.